It's pretty simple to turn your articles into audios or podcasts. All you've got to do is record yourself reading the article or the blog post that you want to turn into an audio. So let's assume that I wanted to create an audio version of my Sheena Was a Man blog post so that I could distribute it via audio channels. We've talked about the different ways that you can record your voice in Module 2's Mediums audio section, but to give you a refresher, some of the tools are GarageBand on the Mac, Audacity for the Mac or for the PC, and Camtasia Studio or ScreenFlow will also record audio for you. Since I'm already recording this presentation for you with ScreenFlow, I'm going to have to use something else to record my audio and do this demo for you, so I'm going to open GarageBand and record. When I'm doing this sort of thing, I prefer to have what I'm reading printed out in front of me so that I can read it as I go along. So in GarageBand, and whatever system you're using may or may not have this, but in GarageBand they've got some different effects, and I'm going to choose mine to podcasting and female radio, and that'll make my voice sound a little bit less like a 14-year-old girl, hopefully. Then I'm going to actually go through and record myself speaking. So to do that, I'll hit the record button, and then I'm going to start speaking, and when I'm ready to stop, I'll hit the record button again. So let's go through that. This thing started with a Facebook post from Jason Moffat. It stuck with me. It burned into my brain, and I had dreams about it. It actually started years before Jason's post, but it was Jason's post where I first saw it and addressed it head on. Alright, so that's the recording, and of course I would go through and read the whole post. Now, we've got some blank space at the beginning and some blank space at the end, which you'll have with any voice recording that you do that you would want to be able to delete because that's just dead air, right? So we want to select that part to delete and go to Edit, Delete. Then we can move the whole track over. And then if I start at the beginning over here and press play, this thing started with a Facebook post from and then let's record the blank space at the, or delete the blank space at the end as well. I'm going to get rid of all of that. Delete. And so it should end fairly quickly here. Let's see if where we're at. And address it head on. Now there's an awkward pause, right? Because I misread something. So let's go back and we'll see exactly where that is. Where I first saw it and addressed it head on. Alright, so you want to edit out any of those awkward pauses, and I'm going to do that right here and get rid of this section. Edit, delete. And then I'll move the track back over so that they meet up. And now let's listen to it from there. Jason's post where I first saw it and addressed it head on. Alright, that sounds a little bit better. And I would just go through this process, read the whole article, and one of the things that I do, here's a tip, is when I make a mistake and I don't want to start the whole thing over, I tap the microphone with my hand on my ring finger so that it makes a loud noise, and I can see that spike in the timeline here. And then I know that wherever there's a big spike like that, that I need to go back and fix something. So that's a way that I make my editing time take a little bit less time. So if this were, say, a 10-minute audio of me reading that entire 3,000 word article, I wouldn't necessarily want to listen to myself for 10 minutes. I'm just going to go to the spots where there's a spike and where I know that there's a problem because I've marked it by putting a spike in the audio, and then I can just edit out those sections very, very quickly, and I don't have to spend as much time in the edit. So once you've got it edited to your satisfaction and you've cut out the spots at the beginning and the end or any awkward pauses in the middle, you can go to Share, and it may be in Export depending on which system you're using, but in this case it's in Share. I'm going to export it to disk, and I want to use it as an MP3. The audio settings, custom is fine, and then I will export it, and it's going to go and export that to my desktop, and there it goes. My audio has been created and I can now utilize it in other ways. So Now, what do you do with the audio once you've actually created it? Of course, you can embed it into a blog post so that your visitors can listen to it or even download it. You can use EasyS3 to create a player for it if you'd like, so that it will play in your inline in your blog post. Or if you'll be doing this regularly and you've got a series of audios that you plan on publishing, you can turn it into a podcast using the WordPress PodPress plugin. Now, for more information on setting up your podcast and getting it into iTunes, watch the video that's for Module 4. It's slide deck to video. And in that video, I demonstrate how to take a podcast and get it into iTunes. So you can go and watch that video because that was for a video podcast. Audio podcast is the exact same process. So you can watch that video and get an idea of how to take this, if you've got a series, and turn it into a podcast. One of the things that you could also consider doing is just creating an audio post, an audio podcast, when it's your very best blog posts, not necessarily the ones that you're quickly curating, but like my long 3,000 word Sheena was a man post. And I've published a few of those, or several of those over time, that are just really great podcast or really great posts that I would love to get more traction on. So you can do this just on the pieces of content that you really feel are excellent and would get great traction out there as a podcast.